Some stories are so tragic, they leave a permanent mark on a country's soul. Today, we're going to talk about one of those cases from modern British history. A case that didn't just shock the world, it forced it to question everything it thought it knew about childhood, about evil, and about justice. This is the story of James Bulger. Our story starts right here, Friday, February 12th, 1993. It began as a completely ordinary day, which honestly just makes what happened next all the more unbelievable. And at the very heart of this story is James Bulger. He was just 2 years old. Let that sink in for a second. 2! That single fact, his age, is the most important thing to remember as we go through what happened. So, picture this. It's a totally normal day. James is out with his mother, Denise, at the New Strand Shopping Center in Bootle. It's busy, it's noisy, the usual chaos of a Friday afternoon shopping trip. And then, in the span of just 2 minutes, everything changed. At 3:40 p.m., James's mom is at the butcher's counter, just for a moment. By 3:42 p.m., grainy security camera footage would show the unthinkable. James is being led by the hand out of the shopping center by 2 older boys. Immediately, a frantic search starts. Everyone's thinking, okay, a toddler's wandered off, we'll find him. But when investigators got a look at the mall's security footage, that search for a lost child turned into something much, much darker. The footage just made everyone's blood run cold. James hadn't just wandered off. He was being purposefully led away. In that one moment, this went from a missing persons case to a full-blown abduction. 2 days later, the search came to the most heartbreaking end imaginable. James's body was found on a railway line, 2.5 miles away from where he was taken. 2.5 miles. That long, terrifying walk became the focus of the entire investigation. The police investigation, helped by people who recognized the boys from the CCTV images in the news, quickly led them to the suspects. And this is the part that absolutely stunned the entire world. The 2 boys responsible, Robert Thompson and John Venables, were only 10 years old. Just 8 days after James went missing, the unthinkable became official. 2 10-year-olds, Robert Thompson and John Venables, were charged with abduction and murder. The whole country was just left reeling, asking this one horrifying question: how could children be capable of this? And this is where things get really complicated, right? The case forced the entire British legal system to face a question it wasn't ready for. What does justice even look like when the perpetrators are still kids themselves? So the trial begins in November of 1993. And it was unlike anything the country had ever seen. It would end up setting legal precedents and kicking off this intense debate that, believe it or not, is still going on today. Now, the first huge controversy was the decision to try them in an adult Crown Court, not a youth court. This meant they were in this super formal, intimidating courtroom. They literally had to sit on raised chairs just so they could see over the dock. And they were exposed to this massive international media storm, all things that would have been totally off limits in a normal trial for kids. And then the jury came back. The verdict: guilty of murder. At just 10 years old, Robert Thompson and John Venables became the youngest convicted murderers in modern British history. Just wow. But the story doesn't end there. The sentencing was a total battleground. Initially, the judge said they had to serve a minimum of 8 years. But public outrage was so intense that a politician actually stepped in and increased it to 15 years. Well, that was later challenged in court and ruled unlawful. So after all the legal back and forth, both were released after serving 8 years. They were given new identities and lifelong anonymity. The impact of this case, though, it goes so far beyond the courtroom. The murder of James Bulger left this permanent scar on the UK, and it fundamentally changed the national conversation about crime, about childhood, and about justice. The ripple effects were just huge. It led to big changes in the laws for child offenders. It forced these really tough debates about the media's power and responsibility. It made people ask hard questions about youth crime, and it started this massive ethical fight over whether offenders like them should ever get anonymity. And, so importantly, it gave a powerful new voice to victims' rights advocates led by James's own family. And I think this quote really nails why the case still resonates so much. It wasn't just shocking. It was shocking because it held up a mirror to society and forced everyone to look at some really uncomfortable truths about violence, about childhood, and about responsibility. In the middle of all the legal arguments and the media frenzy, it's just so important to remember the little boy at the heart of it all. James Bulger's life was tragically, horribly short, but his legacy is profound. It's a story that even today continues to force us to ask the absolute hardest questions about justice and about how we protect our children.